It's me, Teacher Zheng. Welcome to our weekly lesson. So we are going to study symmetrical technique in doing drawing. We are going to use a architecture for reference because it is the most easiest way to show symmetrical drawings. So we are going to start with the very light pencil. We are going to get this layer, the base layer first. So to get the base, what I need you to do is do it as roughly as you can. Do not create any kind of detail first. So try to measure when you're doing symmetrical drawings. What you need to do is measure both sides and its distance, so you could see if you are doing things correctly or not. But in terms of a base layer, you could just draw it as freehand as you can, and then later on adjust your drawing. So for a three-dimensional perspective, what I'm going to do is draw this way and add a little bit of a corner. I'm doing it roughly as I can because we are just trying to do the base layers. So we're just trying to put in everything first, and then after everything had been laid out, we could now proceed with refining our drawing. When you do the left side of this area, make sure that it's almost the same height of the other area. So it is the same principle of the other lessons. On what you see on the left is what you see on the right, especially with symmetrical drawings. Now, since we have the base layer out of the way, we are now going to evaluate the height and the thickness and the perspective of our drawing. We are going to switch to a B pencil, which is a little bit more darker. So if you notice that the front part is wider compared to the top part, so we are going to adjust this and make this a little bit more wider, like this. And instead of cutting it short, we are going to move it a little bit upwards, so we could easily make this a little bit more thicker. Then do the other side. I'm gonna shorten the size. To the other side, make sure that the end parts and the other end part of the other side is almost level, and then do the other one as well. So if this one reaches here, the other one will reach somewhere on this area. Now you need to follow through with the other side, but this time make it a little bit shorter. So instead of extending your drawing, what you need to do here is cut it a little bit so it becomes a little bit more thinner. So before you do this line, make sure that this one and this one are almost the same level. And then if you think they are the same, then you could now place it in. the lines. And then you could now proceed with the top part. Before you do this, try to study the distance between the two ends of this one. If you notice that this area almost lands in the middle, so what you need to do is extend it a little bit, like so. And try to study the same part on the other side, on which this is the end and this is the other end, and it mostly hit the middle part or cuts the middle part. So you need to do that, and then try to copy this area with the almost exact height and size. Now, architecture drawing is fun as long as you know how to do it slowly, so you could come up with a more proper drawing. But if you're just going to roughly draw everything all at once, you will find yourself having a hard time. Also, try to notice the perspective, that the camera angle is starting from the bottom part, meaning this one will have, the base will have a wider shot, and it becomes a little bit narrow as it goes. It's like that. So what you need to do is extend it a little bit here and also on this part. Now again, measure this one and this one, that it's almost the same level or the same height. Now if you think they are the same, then you could now proceed with the other areas. But if you think that you need to fix something, then of course you need to fix it first before proceeding with the other area. Then you need to check on this and the tip. If you notice, they are almost the same height, but this one is a little bit higher as the way I see it, so it's going to be a little lower to this side, tapos the other one, it will be here. And then of course doesn't fit the screen, but you just have to continue. And then afterwards you could just follow through on this area, which is the, now we are going to shade it so you could see the difference. Make it wider. Now in shading, do muna the darkest shades, but do it nice and slow. What we are trying to do is get the contrast of high darks and highlights for our drawing, and then we could now work on the midtones a little later. Now since everything is clear, we could now work on the midtones. So for shading, try to work as nice slowly as possible. If you notice, there's a tone from a darker shade to a lighter shade. Try to work on that part, and also on the other side. When you are shading architecture drawings, try to follow through on the actual lines of your subject. Do not just create a perspective like this and then eventually shade it the other way around. You could use the other hatches or the other cross hatch patterns in doing the details. Now, notice that there's blocks what I'm going to do there is put my pencil on a thinner and then choose a 4B pencil. Let's just say 3.6. Now, since it's blocks like that or bricks, you could slowly imagine doing lines like this. So let's just make muna 2 lines for a sample. Now, after you created 2 lines for the bricks, you need to do something like this. Oops, sorry. Bricks could have a asymmetrical shape, meaning some will be wider and some will be a little bit shorter because of the perspective. And then the second part will have an in-between of the 2 lines from the bottom, so it would be a little bit more easier. Now the in-between lines doesn't need to stay in the middle. You have an option either to work 3/4 or half. And then if you notice, there are patterns of shades. Now from the inside of the brick, you could now use your hatches or different side of cross hatch, like the upward strokes or the diagonal strokes, to create volume and texture on your bricks. Be careful enough not to overshade all of the areas because you don't want it to be too dark. What you need to do, or what you need to achieve, is an illusion of blocks and shades to create texture that represents an old structure on an old building. Doesn't need to be too refined or too clean. What you need to do here is play along with the tones and shadows. The tonal value practice that we usually do from lights to dark are the best loose shadings that you could use for this kind of project. So we're gonna do 2 more, and then so if you notice, I'm trying to shade it as loose as possible using different shades, but it's harder kasi to tone a pencil using a digital sketch compared to an actual pencil. Now, one last for today. If you try to notice that it will have extra or the finer details. Now, those finer details will work last on your drawing. Now, the more you try to refine your drawing, or the more you try to refine your drawing, the better it will look on the final image. But you can never refine your drawing if you don't have an excellent or a good base plate to start on your project. Kasi even though you are getting all the details, if the structure is not at the same level or symmetrical to each other, the drawing will still look a little odd. Trying to put in some tiny details on this one. This kind of technique is called repeatograph, where you repeat everything or every line on your reference. It will take a lot of time or some time, but try to work as slowly as possible and you will have a better result later on. There you go. So there you have it for a quick demo for our architecture reference to create or to study as symmetrical drawings for this week's lesson. I will post this on our YouTube page, and then we'll send the link to the students' email so the students could learn in advance and of course be prepared for the weekly lesson. So this is Teacher Jeng of Studio Andelina and World of Arts. I hope you learned something from a short lesson that we are doing, that we did, or the short demo. I will be seeing you guys on your scheduled art classes. So up until then, love and peace.